Do you know the Charlie Brown special about the first Thanksgiving? No, I don't mean a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. That's the 1973 Peanuts classic that is still watched by millions of Americans every November. But I'm thinking of the other show, the one called The Mayflower Voyagers. It was part of a 1988 miniseries on CBS called This Is America, Charlie Brown. The link is in the description if you want to watch it. In this video, we'll voyage from Pilgrims to Peanuts to look at the true history of the first Thanksgiving, as related through this other Charlie Brown classic. The 8-episode miniseries called This Is America, Charlie Brown originally aired on CBS from the fall of 1988 through the spring of 1989. The series aimed to get children interested in U.S. history by telling key stories of America's past through the eyes of the Peanuts gang. The series' first episode was The Mayflower Voyagers. It premiered on October 21, 1988. It presented a 24-minute-long history of the Pilgrims' initial trials and eventual success to establish a new colony in North America. It aimed to educate young viewers on the historical origins of the so-called First Thanksgiving in America. The story is presented primarily through the Peanuts gang who joined the Pilgrims on their journey. The script broadly covers 4 topics: the Pilgrims' perilous journey across the Atlantic Ocean aboard the ship Mayflower, their harsh first winter at Plymouth in today's Massachusetts, their relationships with local Native Americans, and their fall harvest feast in 1621 that is commonly referred to as the First Thanksgiving. But what about the show is fact and what is fiction? Let's look at 7 key comparisons between the show's script and the actual history of the Pilgrims at Plymouth. We'll uncover what is factual, simplified or omitted, inaccurate, fictional, stylized, mythic, and perspective. And we'll learn why. When it comes to historical fact, The Mayflower Voyagers is a reasonably accurate dramatization of history. Its information drew from 2 primary sources: of Plymouth Plantation by William Bradford and Mort's Relation by Bradford and Edward Winslow. These works are widely accepted by historians as the primary historical accounts of the Pilgrims' settlement of Plymouth. While the show's writers chose the best available source material, it was impossible to include the entire history in a 24-minute show. So they had to simplify or omit some details. The 3 main departures from the source materials arise from 3 constraints inherent in the television medium: audience, time, and creative license. For the show to run under 30 minutes and appeal to young viewers, its writers had to choose which historical details to simplify or omit. This led to decisions about how to handle complex and broader religious, social, and political contexts, as well as what to include about the Pilgrims' history before and after the period that is covered in the show. As a result, roughly a year to 18 months of the Pilgrims' history is understandably compressed, blended, pared down, or omitted. Most of the rest of the historical details were not included simply due to the constraints of the television medium, and because of the inclusion of the Peanuts brand, the historical narrative needed to be conveyed creatively through these characters. The show focuses on themes and events that would be engaging to kids, such as the Pilgrims' hardships and themes of friendship, faith, and survival. It simplifies or omits broader contexts, politics, and governance. Simplifications and omissions aside, the script is fairly accurate to Bradford's historical accounts. But there is one prominent inaccuracy: the exact number of colonists who died and survived. The script says that at least half of the adults lay sick or dying, that half of the passengers and crew died, and that only 20 adults and 30 children survived the first winter. These figures are pretty close to the true numbers, but they are technically inaccurate. We know the Mayflower originally carried 102 pilgrims, including around 30 children and about 30 crew. This is where history gets murky. These numbers are drawn primarily from Bradford's accounts and represent the Pilgrims' losses. But Bradford does not clarify how he defines the ages of the survivors as children and adults, so we can't be sure of how to break down survivors by age. What we can accurately say is that more Pilgrim children than Pilgrim adults survived into the spring of 1621. But there's another problem with these numbers. Bradford and Winslow don't specify how many of the Mayflower crew outlasted the severe winter. The Mayflower also lost men, but the exact number is unknown because full records don't survive. So it's more accurate to say that about half of the adult Pilgrims and an unknown number of Mayflower crew had died by spring. Historians today continue to refine the numbers. To be clear, the script isn't intentionally inaccurate, it merely reflects the limits of the historical record. The show has obvious fictionalizations, but they are not intended to misrepresent history or cultures or mislead viewers. The Peanuts characters are creatively used as narrative guides to humanize history and make difficult history accessible for young viewers. Phrasing and music are modern, but the main historical events are factual, though simplified. The Peanuts characters' presence and dialogue are clearly artistic inventions, yet they reflect the era's spirit and echo ideas from Bradford. For instance, Linus Van Pelt gives a speech on thankfulness and faith that paraphrases Bradford's belief that the Pilgrims' survival was due to divine providence. The scriptwriters seem to have done their best to leverage the fictional Peanuts characters to draw out historical facts. Many aspects of the show are stylized or invented. Not to be misleading, but because some details are unknown and for the artistry to be in line with the Peanuts brand style. The Mayflower ship is animated simply, yet the design closely resembles the actual ship. The Pilgrims' clothing reflects what 1600s English separatists actually wore, muted earth tones rather than the later myth of black outfits with gold buckles. Charlie Brown's signature zigzag shirt appears in a stylized way, purely out of artistic license for brand recognition. Native Americans are portrayed respectfully and with broad cultural accuracy. No contemporary images exist of any of the main historical figures in the show, including Howland, Bradford, Squanto, Samoset. However, a few written details exist about these Native American historical figures. Samoset was a tall, straight man who spoke some English. Squanto was helpful, diplomatic, and fluent in English. Massasoit was dignified and wore a chain around his neck when he met the colonists. The show draws from these historical details to portray these men's appearances, but of course it is impossible to know what the men actually looked like because no further historical descriptions or images exist. So they're not exactly fictionalized. Their appearances are historically based creative inventions that aim to be accurate in spirit because we don't have enough evidence to create a factual likeness. The script never claims that the Pilgrims' 1621 feast was the first Thanksgiving in America. The idea of the first Thanksgiving developed in the United States in the 1800s. The Pilgrims' feast was used to support the myth due to its dramatic power and alignment with fundamental American values, including unity, gratitude, and divine providence. Historically, though, the myth is false, because the Pilgrims' Feast was not the first Thanksgiving in America. The first recorded Thanksgiving service in what is now the United States was a Catholic Mass at St. Augustine in Spanish Florida in 1565. The first English Protestant Thanksgiving took place at Berkeley, Virginia in 1619, 2 years before the Pilgrims' Feast. Days of Thanksgiving were not unique to the Pilgrims or limited to November. For centuries before Europeans colonized North America, Christians and civic leaders had declared days of thanks throughout the year. The Pilgrims' Feast is one of many Thanksgivings they had as part of their routine worship practice. It was not the first Thanksgiving event in America, but it was the first recorded feast day for the Pilgrims in America. It varied from their usual practice of prayer and fasting, and they didn't call it Thanksgiving. Bradford and Winslow described it as a harvest feast and time of rejoicing. In 1623, the Pilgrims had a formal day of prayer that they called Thanksgiving Day after God brought rain to end a drought. But their 1621 harvest feast was the event that later became famous as a symbolic story of faith, perseverance, peace, and unity. The show's primary sources were 2 books, written by white male English separatists. This perspective shapes the script. The show dramatizes the experiences of some Pilgrim men, with chorus-like children interpreting the events. As a result, other perspectives, such as Native Americans, Pilgrim women, and the working-class Mayflower crew, are absent or non-existent. This information shouldn't be used to indicate that Charles Schulz or his team was racist or intended racial bias. Instead, it indicates the limited perspective inherent in the show's source material. The Mayflower Voyagers is worth watching for relative historical accuracy as long as you keep the limitations it faced in mind, like its source material being from the perspective of Pilgrim leader William Bradford. Audiences should understand which parts of the Mayflower Voyagers are dramatized, simplified, or inaccurate, and why those changes were made. For teachers, the show could gently introduce a complex and tragic history to students of a broad range of ages. It incorporates many universal themes, including cooperation, friendship, sharing, helping others, survival, faith, leadership, and strength through diversity. It supports history lessons and invites discussion on historical dramatizations, limitations, and perspectives. perspectives. Used thoughtfully, it can prompt students to dig more deeply into the English separatists, colonial hardships, and early diplomacy between English colonists and Native Americans. Feel free to use the following discussion questions with your students or for self-reflection, and don't be shy. Share your thoughts in the comments. Question 1. Compare the show's facts to its fiction. Does it have more accuracies or inaccuracies? Are you surprised by the results? Question 2. How were the Peanuts characters used to tell this story? Was it effective or not? Question 3. If you could remake the Mayflower Voyagers, what would you add, change, or omit to make it more complete or accurate? Question 4. What can we learn from the Pilgrims and the Native Americans about cooperation and survival? Be sure to check out our other videos and books on history and more. Remember to subscribe, comment, like, and share this video. Thank you for watching, and happy Thanksgiving!
Yikes!